Hey art wizards, Hajra here. Thanks for parking your brushes with me, and today I'll be sharing an elegant Alphonse Mucha Lady Master study, first quickly using the Albertian veil or grid technique, then doing the full figural study and ink over SpectraFix's Instagrit product over my pastel hand marbled paper. So let the epic art adventures begin. So I bought the 16-ounce Instagrit as it's obviously a better value than the 2-ounce, plus I have faith in the SpectraFix brand, so I am comfortable betting on a larger size even for a new product that I haven't tried yet. And if I read the label, it says, invisible traction precisely where you need it for deep layering of color pencil, graphite, oil pastel, etc. Non-toxic and odor-free, works with all media and supports. Directions: apply with a soft brush, allow to dry until hard at least 1 hour. May be layered. Do not dilute. Clean brush in water. The Instagrit jiggles and has the consistency of a vanilla pudding or a custard, which is really cool. And I pulled out some of my hand marbled paper sheets, which already have the SpectraFix Final Fix fixative sprayed on them months ago, as well as a decorative piece of carved wood that I wanted to paint later as one of my kintsugi projects. And I brushed Instagrit onto all of them with a soft brush, making sure I got full coverage. I was able to use mostly the stuff that was on the seal underneath the cap, for most of the pieces before I even dipped into the jar. Like other SpectraFix products, a little of this really goes a long way. Now, of course, I'm going to wipe off my brush later and rinse it thoroughly in water after I'm done using the Instagrit because it's not a good idea to let any ground or medium dry in your brush. And I waited for an hour at least, like the jar said, after I apply it. The SpectraFix Final Fix fixative underneath had a smooth semi-gloss finish, and the papers ended up with a flat, matte, sandpaper-like finish after applying the Instagrit. I'm already a huge fan of SpectraFix's natural green and archival products. I've used Final Fix and Natural Glass for many ink, watercolor, and gouache paintings, as well as pastel marbling, and I'm really delighted to add Instagrit to my arsenal as well. Just like with all the other products I review, I'm unsponsored, so I'm not biased. It's just a terrific product line. And I can totally see using the Instagrit for tonal imprimatura or for recouping tooth for further layering over various media. I can also see it as a natural archival replacement for ground on surfaces that I would have used an acrylic ground on. So now onto the Mucha study demo as a follow-up for my students in my recent 5 Ways to Draw Figures class. In this first quick sketch, I'm working on stone paper, which is not really my cup of tea. And it's interesting because it doesn't tear, easily. It's waterproof and it is kind of soft and buttery to draw on, but it is really tough to erase lines off of. And it's also tough to get super fine pencil details on it, even if you're using a mechanical pencil. So you can see that this just ends up being a fast close-up to get familiar with the features because I can't really do the kind of delicate lines that I want to do that I could get on a cotton paper or a mixed media paper. It's going to end up being a quick, loose, rather rough and unrefined sketch demoing how a grid can help with placement. And I'm going to do a finer one right after this one with a brush and ink on marbled paper, so stay tuned for that. But let's take the chance to teach students about the grid, one of the great historical drawing tools. The fancy name for it is the Albertian veil, or Alberti's veil, and it's credited to Italian artist Leon Battista Alberti from the 1400s. Grids were used as far back as ancient Egypt to maintain proportions for mural transfer and the like, but it was Alberti who pioneered a floating grid with wire or string stretched over an empty wood picture frame to accurately capture a live subject before photography was around. And for centuries, including present day, the Albertian veil or grid remains helpful to traditional artists. You can also add diagonals within certain squares in your grid to get further space division and thus more help in challenging areas like the hands or face. And you can see that in my grid, where the X is, that's where the face will eventually be. Grids are useful and controlled help for freehand drawing, like training wheels on a bike, like I've mentioned before, and great to increase speed and confidence in students of any drawing level. However, they are only as helpful as your squares are accurate and not sloppy. Wonky squares will make a wonky drawing. So you'll have to be precise when you're doing your grid on your reference and also your grid on your drawing paper. Also, grids are tedious to put down and then tedious to erase if your final artwork media is not opaque, so take that into account as well. And in some cases, depending on the support or paper, You might see like the erased grid lines in a pencil drawing or some kind of ink drawing forever. So, make sure that doesn't happen to you, or you use something apart from a grid for that kind of thing. After using them a lot in high school, I myself moved away from grids as I got older and now mostly just use them for teaching. Some of the other historical drawing methods I've taught in classes like sight sizing and proportional division are faster tools to assist freehand drawing versus a grid, and you can see me demoing those as well in my drawing videos, which are in their own playlist on my channel. So for the ink painting, I'll use a 10/0 round and a size 6 wedge brush, both synthetic, so they have some firmness and spring. I find full sable brushes to just be too limp for my tighter rendering and painting style, though you might love them if you work large and loose and washy, so to each their own. And the pot of ink here looks black, but it's actually a very dark Inktense green. It's called racing green, I believe, and I also used it for another painting on marbled paper of a green apple. It'll be much darker here and still look almost black due to the density I use it, as well as the Instagrit's texture assisting the saturation being more stationary versus spreading out easier. Even though the stone paper didn't allow me to get the pencil refinement to the point of a polished sketch, it was enough to familiarize me with the facial features and the hand, explain how to use a grid, and also now I know what challenges I have to address in painting this same face and hand again when I do it smaller. If you do choose to do this in charcoal or pencil graphite, then make sure you use a nicer paper. The Arch sketch paper is quite lovely. And as promised, there was much more tooth thanks to the Instagrit. My pencil lines were dark, easy and buttery to put on. The Inktense ink I use adhered much better than when I use the same ink on the gloss, varnish, or fixative. There was still some correctability and lifting capacity, even with the Instagrit, which is very nice when using ink, when you want some fading out and feathering out effects or just to fix a line you don't like. I plan to resume weekly art videos later this year, and I think around fall is what I'm aiming for. I feel really burned out currently from teaching classes locally in person, and I still have a few more of those classes left this year, and then I will be taking some time off to recharge. I really enjoyed my local students, but I have to agree with other fellow instructors that I've heard mentioning that teaching in person is just not worth all the stress, hassle, and unprofessionalism that now often comes from staff and admin. If you work harder and are more responsible and polite than the staff and admin in an org, I really think you're better off even now just working for yourself, even if it's a bummer about AI and bad algorithms and dead internet, making it less rewarding online than it used to be. When you're doing the hand, recall the earlier rough sketch and how you should have noted the angles in the tucked away fingers and how the suggested shapes are better than overspelled shapes. The fingers here are just disappearing basically, and we just have to capture some evocative angles as they turn the corner. Never underestimate what masters like Alphonse Mucha or Anders Zorn or Sargent teach us about the power of suggestion. And you can see that it's got much the same female face found in other artworks by Alphonse Mucha, including several that I've demoed on my channel. So note how it's a Victorian Caucasian face, loose Grecian-style robes for the costume. So these are all repeat themes, and they fit the era from when he was working as well. The face, the nose, and the mouth also benefit a lot from what isn't shown as much as what is shown. And even the eyes are quite simplified, even though they're the focal point of the face. And even so, it says quite enough. And as I've mentioned before for Mucha faces, the eyebrows are very much of that period thin line across, tapering at the ends, so you make sure you have a soft edge, tapering edge at the front and the back of the eyebrows. And also the roundish, medium-sized eyes. Not almond, not exotic, not overly large, and also a very serene expression, lips that are on the smaller side, and also a nose that's mostly straight but has a bit of a pointed end. And then, of course, the face shape, like I mentioned before, is that oval with full cheeks and a slight point to the chin. Again, you'll see that with the Gibson girls as well. And these women are healthy. They're not gaunt women. They're not, heroin chic kind of models. So I like that too. The Gibson girl style updo that she has is also quite loose, and I used a damp brush to fade out and soften some of the lines in the hair impressions there. And you can do that with a pencil via a tortillon or a kneaded eraser if you're doing this as a drawing on a mixed media or sketch paper as well. And there's a lot of drapery here, but don't let that overwhelm you. If you have some areas where the lines are thicker and thinner, that'll help it add a lot of elegance. And you can also heighten rather than diminish the angles you see in the fabric folds. It looks a lot more realistic than making loose squiggles when you're rendering fabric. There's a lot of triangular shapes amongst all fabric folds. And I was really glad that I used my hand marbled paper for this background. I wanted to do fewer pieces moving forward on bare white watercolor paper as the background, even though I love me a Saturday evening post style bare white background. And it's a great way to jumpstart that for pieces if you have a marbled paper that you made yourself, because then it makes something that would otherwise be a simpler drawing a lot more energetic and a lot more full. So the earth tones of the background really make this look more old world and earthy and ancient, and also add energy and texture and fullness that you're not going to get if it's just a bare background. And I really like that instant mood. It also elevates the piece into something that's a bit more of an original hybrid, mixed with a master study instead of just a straight out copy. I really like how the armchair she's seated on is also not fully rendered, just enough for recognition and for weight in the piece. It's also a great way to get around doing boring furniture that you don't want to render. If you like vignettes, then this is a great way to inspire yourself for your own pieces, to say you don't actually have to fully render background furniture. I was listening to an audiobook as I painted this, something that I do often when I paint or sew, and this time it was one of Roald Dahl's stories, The Twits. So unlike what's going on in this painting, which is all regal and peaceful and elegant, and The Twits just has like terrible people in it, which is really funny. As I got to the end of this piece, I wanted the skin to be less textured and modeled, not fully smooth, so it still harmonized with the rest of the marbled background, but with less loud texture than it had currently. And so I used a dry white Inktense pencil and colored over the face and neck and arms with it. Because of the Instagrit's sandpaper-like finish, that pencil graded smoothly onto the paper. And so I can see this would be an amazing product to apply dry pastels or dry pencils over, because that white pencil went on really smoothly. In my case, I came back over that pencil, because it's a water-soluble, with a damp brush to make it look more like paint and not dry pastel. And I did like how it quieted down the texture in the skin areas, which is what I was aiming for. I also later brushed in a light and slight amount of yellow ochre into the whitish skin areas to warm them up a bit, because they dried too cool and too blue for me when it was just the white layer. And then I was reasonably happy with this Mucha study and really enjoyed using the Instagrit this first time around as well, and look forward to trying it for many things in the future. Well, I hope this inspires you to do your own Mucha Lady Master study. Use Instagrit as an awesome archival natural product whenever you want to regain tooth on an artwork surface for further layering or as a ground. And also maybe you're inspired to make your own marbled paper. Subscribe and see my website for all my links all on one page. As always, wishing you all epic art adventures.